A storm rages outside as the gray-haired boy watches the dark hallway of an old, gloomy building. Upon entering his home, he tells his parents he's arrived, but his clothes are completely soaked from the heavy rain. Inside the kitchen, the old couple greets him strangely, with his father all bandaged up and his mother preparing dinner. Suddenly, the woman strikes her husband with a kitchen object, and the impact causes a lot of red fluid to appear. Ignoring the violence, the matriarch asks her son to rest in the living room as the red fluid spreads across the floor. Even though he's hurt, the father insists on asking about the romantic date the young man had that day. With that, the mood becomes heavy, and the protagonist shows great nervousness as he faces the bizarre situation in his own home. With a sad look, the boy explains that the girl needs time, and that he doesn't intend to force anything right now. At that moment, the couple stares at their son with eyes glowing in the dark in a totally scary and inhuman way. Then a strange shadow appears near the hero's feet, and it seems like something dark is watching his every move. Just then, the mother firmly grips a sharp blade, and the tension rises as she begins to talk about his future. She then states that he can't live off drawing comics forever and needs to focus on starting a family quickly. But the young man's reflection in the cutting tool shows how empty he feels in the face of his parents' excessive demands. The woman forcefully strikes the meat on the board, and the sound of the metal hitting it echoes throughout the silent room. Giving in to the pressure, the artist agrees to the woman's orders while watching her handle the sharp object. On television, the news shows that a famous animated feature broke box office records, hitting 15 billion views. Sitting on the couch, the young man checks the messages on his phone and realizes his professional life is a complete disaster. He notices that his work has been put on hold and feels that his talent vanished after a strange accident at a dam. Remembering the past, the artist sees himself falling into an abyss and claims to have seen a real spirit on that terrible occasion. Sinking in the icy water, the protagonist confesses he doesn't remember if he actually fell or if someone rescued him from a terrible fate. He awakens with a sharp pain and notices black marks on his right arm that seem to pierce his skin. Screaming in bed, the young man feels that this strange tattoo is a curse that is growing and spreading through his body. But the artist believes that losing his ability to create is the same as being eliminated, as it is his only passion. Besides losing his talent and memory, he is trapped in this house and always returns here, no matter how hard he tries to escape. At that moment, the young man remembers that he is actually an orphan, and that the couple in the living room are not his real parents. Meanwhile, the two figures are talking, and the man tells the woman to be calm, because their son will understand the situation soon. With a scary smile, the man suggests they should introduce a few more girls to the artist. Upon hearing this conversation, the protagonist is in shock, unable to believe what is happening right in front of him. The woman then replies that they have already introduced several girls to the young man, but the result was always the same. She complains that the boy always asks for time to think, and that no one knows how long that will really take. With a sad face, he realizes that this dialogue has been repeating for a week, and that his parents seem to have come out of his manga. He then understands that this is not a nightmare, and that his comic is invading reality with characters he created himself. On the television, an urgent news report talks about the mysterious disappearance of dozens of women from a local nightclub. The police ask everyone to be vigilant and report if they see anyone resembling the suspect from the cameras. The young man gets scared because this news is new, and the crime just happened in that exact moment of tension. Suddenly, the television turns off by itself, and the room becomes completely dark and silent for a moment. Then he notices his fake mother is right behind him with the remote control in her hand, and a very sinister look. Right after, the fake father also approaches the young man and sits next to him, making the atmosphere even heavier. The couple says they are getting older and only wish for him to start a career and a family so he won't be alone. With a strange smile, the artist asks if they are going to look for more girls, and says that marriage can't be rushed. The two imposters reveal their true, evil intentions with a scary and dark look towards the young man. Then they grab him and tell him they have already chosen a bride, and that today is the perfect day for the engagement to happen. Desperate, the artist screams for them to let him go and asks what on earth they are talking about at that moment. But upon hearing about the auspicious day, he remembers a terrible detail from his work and goes into a total panic. In his manga, the ghost parents need to find a couple to get married so they can finally be free from their curse. Suddenly, bizarre red tentacles begin to emerge from the bandages on his fake father's head. With his eyes glowing red, the man transforms and yells that his son must get married today, no matter what. The artist calls the old man crazy, but is grabbed tightly as the grotesque creature fully reveals itself. His fake mother approaches and asks the young man not to resist, as they are doing everything for his own good. Then, the woman also reveals her monstrous face, with torn-up skin and eyes leaking a red substance in a horrifying way. Completely terrified, the young man faces the monsters he himself created, not knowing what to do to escape. The two creatures scream that he needs to get married on the auspicious day so they can finally rest in peace. They continue to pressure the boy, saying it's for his own good, and that he needs to be obedient for everything to work out. Unable to take it anymore, the protagonist yells that he agrees to everything but begs them to let him go immediately. Upon hearing the promise, the creatures look at each other, and the man gives a scary and very satisfied smile at the response. Celebrating their victory, the two monsters start to laugh maniacally and celebrate that their son has finally given in. After calming down, they look towards a dark doorway where a mysterious silhouette is standing and watching everything. Soon after, the fake parents return to the living room, dragging a large, heavy bag while announcing they are back. The young man is in shock at the sight, and the monsters stare at him with their red eyes glowing in the darkness. They then present the bag to the young man, and the man asks the mother to come in, as the bride has finally arrived. Inside the bag, a red liquid drips onto the floor, while one of the monsters comments on the heavy rain outside. Excited, the fake parents open the package, eager to give the present to their dear son. From inside the bundle, a woman in a red dress falls to the floor. She is hurt and covered in red stains, but still breathing. At that moment, the artist remembers the news on TV and the script of his manga, and realizes the girl is not gone. In complete shock and despair, the young man covers his mouth, unable to believe the horrible scene unfolding. He then crawls to the victim and confirms that she is still alive despite the serious injuries all over her body. Just then, the protagonist sees several shadows with macabre smiles around the woman and understands they need a living person. Trembling with fear and breaking out in a cold sweat, the boy can't believe the cruelty of these monsters from his own mind. Right after, two creatures grab him by the arms and force him closer to the bride they kidnapped. But as he struggles, an orange energy begins to glow on his hand, where the mysterious mark of the curse is. Using this new strength, the young man manages to break free, and the monster is shocked that a human could hurt it. With glowing eyes, the artist prepares to fight back with his hand in flames and an expression of pure fury. However, he is caught off guard by white silk ribbons that quickly attack and completely immobilize him on the floor. The fake mother complains that the gift got dirty, but her copy says she has prepared more ribbons for the ceremony. With that, the protagonist is completely tied up by the ribbons and can't move even a single inch. He realizes he can break the monster's hand, but can't free himself from the white silk at all. Unable to react, the artist just watches as his energy fades, and he becomes completely defenseless again. The monsters then grab him and the woman by the hair and violently drag them close to each other. The two are forced to touch their heads together in a bizarre ceremony, both with expressions of pure terror. The two female creatures then begin the ritual and command the husband and wife to bow to each other. The protagonist faces the situation with a hurt but determined look, resolved not to give in to this madness. The female creatures then ask if he didn't like the girl and suggest swapping her for a prettier and more attractive one. One of the look-alikes then turns and walks towards the door with a sinister smile on her face as she observes her nails. Soon after, the doorknob starts to turn by itself, and a strange noise echoes through the silent room. Then the fake parents return to the living room covered in red fluid, dragging another heavy bag with more victims inside. Their feet leave a trail of red fluid and water on the house floor as they approach the young artist. From inside the new package, 3 more women are thrown to the floor, all of them appearing badly hurt and unconscious. Now the young man is kneeling, surrounded by bodies, while the creatures watch him with their glowing red eyes. Clapping their hands, the monsters begin to shout in unison for the boy to marry one of the girls immediately. Dark figures join the chorus, and the pressure on the protagonist increases with every second in this nightmare. With eyes glowing in pure fury, the artist faces his captors and decides he won't take it silently anymore. His hand glows with a powerful energy, and he clenches his fist, preparing to use his mysterious ability again. The main monster gets angry, and with a demonic shadow emerging from it, orders the wedding to happen right now. But the young hero is not intimidated and concentrates all his firepower in his hand to finally counter the attack. With a direct hit, he strikes the monster and incinerates it with an explosion of intense, bright flames. The other creatures are shocked by the scene, and the fake mother screams desperately for someone to stop the artist. However, the young man's hand is once again wrapped in the white silk ribbons, and his power seems to be contained again. The female look-alike attacks him from behind and immobilizes him, while the other monsters prepare to attack as a group. The artist is surprised to see that the mark on his wrist continues to glow even after being tied by the ribbons. He then points his hand towards the door, and the monsters look on in fear, not understanding what the young man intends to do now. The main doorknob glows faintly in the darkness of the hallway as a new presence approaches. With a click, the lock opens by itself, and the door begins to move slowly into the haunted house. Then, the entrance is broken down with a blast of energy, and a female silhouette appears in the middle of the smoke. The monsters are hit hard by the shockwave and retreat in fear at the arrival of the new visitor. In the doorway, a pink-haired girl faces the creatures with a superior look as blood, like tentacles emerge from them. With a seductive smile, the newcomer says she has finally found the person she was looking for so earnestly. She introduces herself as Xiaami, the protagonist's fiancée, and greets his fake parents very politely. But upon seeing the bizarre scene, with the young man tied up and surrounded by bodies, the girl is clearly surprised by the mess. With shadowed eyes, she asks the creatures if they are by any chance holding a wedding ceremony. Then her eyes sparkle with hearts, and she seems excited by the idea of a marriage party happening there. One of the monsters places a hand on the artist's head and asks if he did something wrong to deserve this interruption. The pink-haired girl then throws a jealous fit and asks why her fiancé is marrying another woman. With a serious expression, she seems to suspect something and questions if the young man is trying to leave her for good. Suddenly, she pulls out a sharp dagger and attacks one of the monsters in the head without any mercy or hesitation. Shouting the protagonist's name, the young warrior accuses her beloved of betrayal and attacks the rest of the creatures with fury. With quick and precise strikes, she cuts down several monsters at once with a sharp, red energy blade. At that moment, a baby's voice coming from the fake mother's belly says it wants the newcomer as its new mommy. The monster couple then looks at each other knowingly and seems to agree with the bizarre wish of the unborn child. Right after, they disintegrate the bodies of the other woman into a pool of dark and scary energy. This dark energy then flies towards the protagonist and completely envelopes him as he screams in pain. The fake parents are enchanted with the girl and say their son has good taste, as she is like a fairy who came from the sky. They quickly change their tune and pretend to scold the artist for not telling them about his fiancée sooner, since she is so much better. But the young man stares at the pink-haired girl, trying to understand who she is and why she appeared so suddenly. At that, the newcomer holds the hand of the protagonist's fake mother and seems to want to form an alliance with the monsters. With that, the creature assures her that she will only accept her as a daughter-in-law and will never again force her son to marry another. The girl is overjoyed with the promise and, with sparkling eyes, thanks her future mother-in-law for the total acceptance. She then corrects herself and says she should call her Mom, and the relationship between the two suddenly seems to become very friendly. The fake father also celebrates and thinks the young woman is the perfect prey for him, while the hero watches everything suspiciously. The artist is now certain that she is a character he created but doesn't understand the reason for her obsession with him. Suddenly, the name Xiaami comes to his mind, and the artist is shocked as he finally remembers who she is. He remembers that the girl is a Yandere support character from one of his oldest and most dangerous mangas. In the story, she was the main villain, and he gave the protagonist his own name, which explains the girl's confusion. The young man knows she is very powerful and thinks about using her to defeat the real villain, who is the camera ghost. But he doesn't understand why she appeared in this story and remembers the girl said she had been looking for him for a long time. Also, the marks on his arm reacted to her presence, and the artist begins to suspect a connection between the two. Without warning, the girl hugs him tightly and celebrates that they can finally be together, leaving the young man speechless. She then says she missed every part of his body and asks if it was hard to endure the days without her company. The Yandere claims that he was also thinking of her and their marriage promise, while the hero becomes increasingly tense. With a headache, the artist can't handle the pressure of the situation, and the mark on his hand glows more intensely. At that, a memory of the accident at the dam surfaces, and he remembers seeing the girl there, but can't recall anything else. The pink-haired girl squeezes him with immense force in a suffocating and possessive hug. With her face pressed against his, she asks if her beloved might be trying to deceive her with false promises of love. Feeling a terrible pain, the young man thinks he needs to use her, but her love is too bizarre and scary. To survive and put his plan into action, he decides he first needs to calm the girl down and gain her trust. He then hugs her back and swears he never forgot the marriage promise he made to her in the past. With eyes full of tears and hearts, the young woman asks if he's not lying and says she will do anything for him. Holding her face, the artist declares his love and asks her to believe his sincere words. At that moment, the fake mother with the huge belly gets the Yandere's attention, interrupting her with a call. The protagonist notices the creature's belly has grown, and the monsters approach the couple near the window. With a sinister smile, they offer a bowl of hot soup to their future daughter-in-law as a welcoming gesture. The pink-haired girl gladly accepts the gift and thanks her auntie for her kindness with an innocent smile. Looking into the bowl, she sees her reflection in the thick, red liquid that seems to have something very strange in it. The monsters explain that the soup has special ingredients and is made only for the family's daughter-in-law to drink. The girl comments on the nice smell and says their love is out of this world upon learning what the soup is made of. Without hesitation, she drinks the liquid, and immediately after, the bowl falls to the floor and shatters into pieces. Suddenly, the Yandere starts to choke, and a red liquid runs from her mouth as she clutches her neck. With a lost look and no strength, the girl faints, and her body begins to fall slowly towards the floor. Before she hits the ground, the protagonist catches her in his arms and supports her with care and concern. With tears in her eyes, the young woman says he knew the soup was poisoned but still didn't stop her. She then accuses him of not caring and wanting to abandon her, and asks if he will leave her as soon as she is gone. Watching the girl get sick, the artist wonders if she's just acting, or if the poison really had some bizarre effect on her. Even though he's worried, the young man realizes the monsters fell into the trap, and now the plan to lure out the real enemy will finally work. Suddenly, the kitchen starts to shake, and the household utensils float, surrounded by a very strange and dangerous purple energy. Laughing maniacally, the fake parents celebrate the success of their evil plan, stating that they will all be one big family forever. At this, the pink-haired girl gets confused by the monster's words and tries to understand the meaning of becoming one with them now. But the girl soon changes her mind and gets all excited, thinking her beloved wants to be stuck to her as if they were one person in the future. Meanwhile, the two creatures embrace in a macabre way, and their eyes glow intensely in the middle of the total darkness of the room. At that moment, the ghost woman's body begins to tear apart violently, and red energy explodes from within her with great force and fury. Screaming in pure agony, the creature twists and turns while its face shows unbearable suffering in the face of this bizarre transformation. With the impact, the red fluid sprays everywhere, staining the room with a dark mark that seems to have a life of its own on the floor. Then, a dense smoke fills the room, and the artist realizes that the most feared being from his work has finally decided to reveal itself to fight. From the middle of the mess, a tall and sinister figure emerges, carrying an old camera hanging from its neck in a frightening way. Scared, the young man recognizes the monster and warns that it is the camera ghost, the first major villain he ever created. With a wicked smile, the newcomer praises the young man's parents and says they are the perfect pieces for his macabre photo collection. Just then, the dark being raises its camera equipment and announces it will take a wedding photo to immortalize this moment of pure terror. He guarantees that after the click, everyone will be transformed into a real family and will be trapped in his lens for all eternity. Cutting to the past, we see the hero in his room working hard as he draws this exact monster on his work computer. Thoughtfully, the author observes his creation and remembers that this was the first story he wrote to try to make a living in the world of manga. With the pen in his hand, the artist decides he will base the tale on his own personal experiences to make everything more realistic and scary. But upon finishing the pages, he never imagined that his drawings would come to life and trap him inside this dark world with no easy way out. In the manga, the camera ghost was an unstable orphan who grew up in an orphanage and always watched other families with envy. As an adult, he decided to become a wedding photographer to be close to the happiness he never had in life. But the more he photographed happy couples, the more twisted and bitter his heart became over time. Unable to bear it any longer, the man began to hunt families and trap their souls inside the camera to have the love he never received. In the end, he knew that love was fake and decided to end his own life before the police could capture him. Back in the present, the monster stares at the protagonist and the pink-haired girl with a look full of hatred and resentment. With great courage, the artist faces the creature and says that its life is pathetic and has no real purpose. Shocked by his audacity, the ghost asks how the young man knows its name and where he got all this information. The young man then reveals that he knows about the villain's childhood and the jealousy he felt towards other children with loving parents. With a cold look, he continues telling the story and says that the monster became a maniac who hunted couples to obtain an illusory love. The hero then provokes the ghost, calling him a worm who begs for love and family happiness without deserving anything. With a smirk, the artist claims that he understands the creature better than anyone because it is something he himself created. Completely stunned, the monster asks what the young man just said, unable to believe those words. The artist then reveals that the ghost is a character from his first manga and was based on his own experiences. With this revelation, the monster's camera shatters, and the creature's reality seems to fall apart along with the object. Overcome with fury, the ghost screams that it's all the protagonist's fault and that he turned it into a monster. The creature then lunges to attack the young man with all its strength, promising to finish him off once and for all. But the young man feels a sharp pain as the pink-haired girl's hug is slowly crushing his internal organs. With his body aching all over, the hero realizes he can't dodge the enraged creature's imminent attack. With a battle cry, the ghost approaches with a sharp object and tries to strike the protagonist right in the chest. At the last second, the pink-haired girl grabs the monster's hand, stopping the final blow against the protagonist. With her eyes sparkling with hearts, she warns that only she can finish off her beloved, and that the villain is not worthy. The young man smiles, and says she knew he wouldn't be in danger, and the girl replies that now they are even. The ghost gets irritated by the scene, and the girl completely ignores it while the artist calls her mean. With a swift movement, the young woman disarms the creature and throws the sharp object into the air with great ease. Right after, the couple turns to leave, but the sound of someone's footsteps makes them stop in their tracks. The camera ghost then summons an army of trapped souls and orders them to attack the two intruders. But the pink-haired girl is not intimidated and prepares to face the horde of spirits with a confident look. The spirits then charge forward at high speed and try to grab the couple with their sharp, dark claws. With a disgusted expression, the young woman faces the enemies and calls them disgusting things before releasing her power. At that moment, a red energy explodes from her body, and the girl unleashes a devastating shockwave all around. The spirits are hit head-on, and their bodies are completely disintegrated by the girl's overwhelming power. The artist is shocked by the scene and watches his companion floating in the air, surrounded by the bodies of her enemies. The young warrior asks her beloved if she looks pretty like that. The young man gets all embarrassed by the question, and the girl just grumbles with a slightly annoyed expression. Seeing its army defeated, the camera ghost becomes enraged and readies its equipment for the final attack. Seeing the perfect opportunity, the protagonist asks the girl to throw him towards the main villain now. Using her spikes, the young woman creates a platform and launches the hero through the air in a quick and precise movement. The monster then points the camera at the young man and uses its deadly freezing ability to paralyze him in mid-air. Even though he's paralyzed, the mark on the artist's arm glows, and he manages to extend his hand to try and grab the enemy. With the momentum, the young man manages to land on the floor and grab the sharp object that the girl disarmed from the monster. Upon holding the blade, the mark on his hand glows with a golden and very powerful energy at that moment. At that, the protagonist yells that his arm no longer obeys him, and he completely loses control of his movements. His hand then throws the object at the villain's camera, and several photos with trapped souls begin to fly out of it. The spirits of the fake parents look at their photo and seem to finally remember their past lives. Right after, all the other souls gather and try to grab their own photos to remember who they were. One of the phantoms holds a photo of its wedding, and a tear of pure energy runs down the old paper. In agony, the souls of the couple are enveloped by a dark energy, and their cries of pain echo through the room. This energy then transforms into a giant and bizarre creature with several red eyes full of fury. With a cold look, the artist tells the spirits to take their revenge on the creature that stole everyone's happiness. With that, the mass of souls attacks the camera ghost, and the villain screams in despair as it's caught by surprise. Completely overwhelmed, the monster is consumed by the soul's revenge, and its face contorts in pure pain. Soon after, a red light explosion occurs, and a powerful shockwave destroys everything around it. The hero is hit by the energy, and the mark on his hand seems to absorb all the dark power from the explosion. With a red eye, he realizes that he can now use the freezing ability of the monster he just defeated. In his reflection, the young man sees the silhouette of a mysterious and dark woman who seems to be linked to his new power. He understands that the ability only lasts for 3 seconds, but it's enough to save him in a dangerous situation. The pink-haired girl approaches, worried, and says her heart aches to see his eyes leaking red like that. He replies that it's the price of power and wonders what this mark that absorbs the energy of ghosts is. Changing the subject, the protagonist asks his companion how she managed to get out of her original manga. The pink-haired girl responds with a seductive smile and says that he was the one who woke her from her slumber. The artist gets confused by her answer, and the girl asks if he has really forgotten everything. With her eyes full of fury, she accuses him of lying and hiding the truth about their past. Floating in the air, the young woman yells that he doesn't remember the promise he made, and that this is unforgivable to her. Overcome with jealousy, the girl pulls out a sharp blade and threatens the artist with a completely insane look. To stop the attack, the protagonist holds her face firmly and the mark on his hand glows intensely. Without a second thought, the young man silences her with an unexpected kiss, and the girl is surprised by his action. While they kiss, the girl still holds the weapon, and the mood between them becomes tense at that moment. At that, the mark on his arm begins to glow with a red energy and seems to react to the contact with her. The pattern then spreads to the hero's neck and seems to drain his life force in a painful way. With wide eyes, the young man feels a terrible pain, and the mark starts to take over his face as well. Soon after, he pulls away from the girl and falls to the floor, feeling an agony he can't quite explain. On his knees, the artist writhes in pain and doesn't understand what is suddenly happening to his body. Worried, the Yandere approaches and points to her beloved's face, which is now bleeding quite a bit. The young man realizes the pattern has manifested on his face like a dark and very bizarre tattoo. With his hand on his face, he wonders if he has finally returned to the real world and what this strange mark is. The young woman then confirms that they are in his world and that this is the true reality now. She explains that the pattern consumes his life, but can be fed with the power of the ghosts he hunts. With a seductive look, the girl offers to help him control this power, and the young man is left speechless. Then the girl says her ghost power is the best food and suggests they do something comfortable. With a smile, the girl starts to touch the hero's chest in a strange way while saying it's time to start their service. In a cute scene, the pink-haired girl hugs the young man tightly and says she wants to take very good care of him from now on. The artist tries to pull away and asks what happened to the world and how she managed to get out of the pages of his old manga. With her eyes sparkling with hearts, the beautiful girl asks if it wasn't the creator himself who woke her from her deep slumber at that dam. The young man is left completely speechless upon hearing that and stares at his ally with an expression of pure confusion and surprise. Suddenly, the mood turns cold and the girl asks with a dark look if his marriage promise was just a cruel lie. Noticing her bloodlust, the protagonist tries to calm the situation and explains that he has been having serious memory problems lately. With a serious look, the artist reveals that this strange pattern appeared on his arm right after the terrible accident at the destroyed dam. He recalls being trapped in an endless loop with monsters and asks the girl what really happened on that fateful day. The Yandere becomes thoughtful and stares into space as she begins to detail the bizarre events that unfolded that afternoon of total chaos. At that moment, we see a giant, scary eye appearing in the red sky, surrounded by lightning and widespread destruction. Several dark monsters begin to appear, and among them is a psycho clown holding a very loud electric cutting tool. In the midst of the confusion, the powerful pink-haired girl appears, fighting the creatures to protect her beloved author. The young man realizes that the clown is also one of his old drawings and notices that many anomalies have escaped from comics into real life. Affectionately, the young warrior holds his arm and confirms that she was the only one responsible for saving the young man's life at that moment. She confesses her deep love and says she could never just stand by and watch her creator be eliminated by those beasts. Thoughtfully, the hero understands that his survival instinct made him summon the only character capable of facing any danger for him. He then questions why she wasn't around when he woke up and if the plan to hide him was what caused all this confusion. The girl is suspicious of his intentions and warns that a simple display of affection won't resolve all the doubts she feels now. With great confidence, the artist states that he understands her mind better than anyone and asks if the hiding spot was meant to block the enemies. He then concludes that he set everything up before losing his memory and that the girl was the only one he could fully trust. At this, the young man understands that entering the ghost parents' loop was to avoid something worse, but he still asks why she left him. Frightened, the young woman reveals that a very powerful enemy appeared and started chasing them right after the rescue at the dam. The artist is shocked to see the fear on her face and asks who this person is that has her so terrified. She admits she doesn't know the villain's identity, but says his aura was so strong it almost left her breathless with fear. The girl explains that he passed out again, and she had to hide him in the safest place before luring the enemy away. The protagonist realizes her fear is real and understands that this new enemy is not a common anomaly like the others. The pink-haired girl describes the pursuer's energy as so cold it felt like it could freeze the very bones of anyone nearby. With this, the artist suspects that this mysterious being might be the source of all their problems, and the young woman is confused by the theory. He believes that the dam's explosion and the appearance of the anomalies might be directly linked to this new, dark villain. The warrior is shocked by the idea and asks if her beloved is suggesting that this enemy was the one who created all of them. The young man explains that he's not the creator, but is involved, and that facing this being with their current power would be a fatal mistake. Clenching his hand, he thinks about the danger this new threat represents for their future together. But he assures her there is a way out, and that by recovering his memory, he will find the weak point of the enemy that he also drew. With a challenging look, he wonders if the villain stole his memory out of fear that he would discover his greatest weakness. At that moment, a lightning flash illuminates the room, and the mood becomes even more tense with the revelation about the new and powerful enemy. The artist then gets up and faces his companion with a new determination to solve this mystery once and for all. The pink-haired girl watches him in silence, waiting to see what the next step of his action plan will be. Standing up, the young woman asks what he intends to do to begin the hunt for this new and terrible adversary. The hero decides that the first step is to find the clown ghost, as he knows more about the main villain of the story. He states that he needs to extract the information from the ghost clown's mouth, and to do that, they must find him first. The artist then explains that this enemy is the first key to unraveling the whole mystery and the initial step to facing him. With a thoughtful look, the pink-haired girl wonders where on earth they could find this creature now. The young man remembers that the villain's prototype was a failed circus performer, and his obsession would lead him back there. At this, the young warrior asks again where the exact hiding place of that circus monster they are looking for is. With a smile, the hero says that he is at the Circus of Truth and that he will get his life back, no matter the cost this time. And so, the two arrive in front of a bizarre circus tent under the light of a red moon and a very dark sky. Without hesitation, the couple enters the place, and a sinister red energy greets them at the front door of the show. Soon after, they walk down the hallway and notice that the environment is completely dominated by a macabre and heavy aura. In the audience, they see several people with serious injuries and expressions of pure terror as they watch the show. Everyone there seems to be in a trance and is crying desperately, unable to leave their seats at all. At that moment, the duo looks at the stage and sees a girl tied to a giant wheel that spins nonstop in the center. The clown then appears with a manic smile and prepares to begin his act of throwing sharp objects. With glowing eyes, the monster welcomes everyone to his theater of truth and smiles. Soon after, he begins to throw several sharp objects towards the woman who is tied to the wheel on the stage. The cutting tools end themselves in the wood, and the victim is trapped, unable to move, as a red liquid drips down. With her face covered in tears, the girl screams in pain and despair as she's hit by the evil clown's attacks. But suddenly, the woman thanks him for his cooperation, and the audience is horrified by the bizarre scene that just happened. The monster then announces that the next trick will be the most incredible of all, and will shock the entire audience for good. With that, a box explodes on stage, and the clown prepares to perform his grand, deadly, and very dangerous magic trick. The clown raises his cutting tool and announces his magic trick of slicing people up to the audience. With the object in his hand, he asks if any brave warrior from the audience wants to come on stage to participate. Despite their fear, the people in the audience clap forcefully, as if they are being controlled. Seeing that no one is volunteering, the creature's face fills with pure disappointment and sadness. At that moment, the protagonist raises his arm with a confident smile and offers to participate in the act. The circus monster is surprised by the young man's attitude and stares at him Not understanding what is happening, he soon recognizes the couple from the dam and is happy that the two have come straight into his deadly trap. The pink-haired girl gets worried, but the artist asks her to stay calm and watch everything very carefully. The hero knows that the clown isn't that strong and that his mark wants to devour that creature's ghost power. With a calm look, the young man stares at the blade of the cutting tool without showing a hint of fear. The villain says the tool is his old friend and that it helped him create countless works of art in the past. Suddenly, a bouquet of red roses appears out of nowhere in the monster's hands as part of his macabre show. He offers the flowers to the girl and asks her not to interfere, while he slices her husband into pieces. With a smile, the young woman accepts the gift and says she will always be wherever her man is, no matter what. At that, she crushes the flowers with her hands and releases a powerful energy that startles the clown for a moment. The monster then points to a box and tells the young man not to worry, as it is just a magic trick. On the table, the protagonist sees one of his original illustrations of the ghost clown that he himself drew. Without complaining, the artist lies down inside the wooden crate and prepares for the trick that is about to happen. Lying down, he taunts the villain and says that his old friend seems a little nervous about the whole situation. In a fit of anger, the clown turns on his power tool and prepares to cut the young man in half in front of everyone. With glowing eyes, the clown says the young man will find out how good it feels to be taken apart by his blade. At that, the artist taunts the monster and asks if it will be like the mistake he made in the past, when he cut himself in half. Overcome with fury, the villain shouts that the young man is asking to be eliminated and raises the tool to attack. But as the blade comes down, the mark on the hero's hand glows, and red tentacles surprisingly stop the attack. The artist then says that his old friend is nervous because it has finally recognized its true creator. Then, the red energy completely envelops the clown, leaving it totally immobilized and unable to react. The tentacles then pull the cutting tool from the monster's hand and bring it towards the protagonist. Now, with the weapon in hand, the artist faces the creature and says that his friend prefers to cooperate with its creator. Desperate, the clown begs for his master to spare his life as he is pressed against the floor by the young man. With sweat on his face, the villain admits he was wrong and shows the hero 2 cards with theater masks. The young man then points the blade at the enemy and orders him to explain everything about the dam clearly. Trembling with fear, the creature agrees to talk and promises to tell all the details of that terrible day. The monster starts to stammer about the mysterious person, but its expression changes to a malicious smile. The artist realizes it's a trick and thinks that his character never changes his old habits of deceiving others. With an explosive device in its mouth, the clown says goodbye and prepares to escape using a smoke screen. A smoke explosion occurs, and the impact throws the hero backward, while the villain takes the chance to escape. But the creature is hit by a mysterious blow, and its body is thrown forcefully to the other side of the stage. Worried, the protagonist screams his companion's name and watches the scene with an expression of pure fury. The pink-haired girl appears and traps the villain with her red energy threads, preventing his escape. With a seductive smile, the young woman creates a cage of thorns and prepares to teach the monster a lesson. In a surprise attack, the young woman's red spikes pierce the clown's body in several vital spots. The artist then approaches and says he knew the creature wouldn't be honest, and that it brought this upon itself. Even though he's hurt, the villain lets out a manic laugh and doubts that this simple trap can really hold him there. Suddenly, the monster's body explodes into a cloud of smoke, and the protagonist realizes something is wrong. With sweat on his face, the young man is shocked to understand that it was just a substitution clone. Just then, the real clown appears behind the couple and prepares to attack with a heavy weapon in his hands. The people in the audience then stand up, and their eyes glow red, as if they are being controlled. With that, the couple is completely surrounded by the crowd of zombies that slowly approach from all sides. The villain says goodbye with a smile and warns that they can play again the next time they meet. The hero decides not to use his freezing power because the distance is too great and there's no guarantee of catching the enemy. Seeing that his companion was about to attack the crowd, he asks her not to hurt the innocent people there. The girl complains about letting the rat escape, and the artist notices that the anomalies are evolving over time, but he guarantees that the enemy won't get far, and says the cutting tool will lead them to his hiding place. At that, the weapon's blade glows with a dark energy, and seems to have the ability to track its former owner. Worried, the pink-haired girl warns her beloved, and tells him to be careful as it could all be a trap. The mark on the protagonist's hand then reacts to the weapon's power, and a red energy begins to flow through it. This dark energy then leaves the tool and wraps around the young man's finger, forming a mysterious and shining ring. With a smirk, the artist says the weapon has finally recognized its true master and creator. The Yandere approaches and says the clown's evil aura is in the ring and offers to cut it off. With glowing eyes, she suggests making a necklace with his finger bones, and the artist gets nervous at the idea. The ring on the hero's finger glows and guides them to a scary hotel where the ghost clown is hiding. The young man feels that something is wrong because he didn't draw this place, but the girl only cares about her engagement ring. With a hug, he promises he will make the ring for his beloved, but first, they need to capture their enemy. Following the red energy of the ring, the couple enters the dark hotel and prepares for whatever comes next. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy, and the two feel a strange presence watching their every step. Suddenly, a mysterious voice asks if the two guests are looking for a place to stay for the night. They then approach the reception desk and see a man working on his computer calmly. With a smile, the protagonist confirms they will be staying there and leans casually on the counter. The receptionist becomes visibly nervous with their presence and asks them to wait just a moment. The artist then asks about a friend who works at the circus and dresses as a clown to see the man's reaction. The employee gets scared by the question and seems not to know what to answer the mysterious guest. At that moment, a man in a suit appears and warns that customer information is confidential, startling the receptionist. He suggests that the young man call his friend and ask him to come down and get them personally. The newcomer introduces himself as the owner of the hotel, and the employee calls him boss with great fear in his voice. The manager then points to the hallway and tells the chubby guy to take the couple to the vacant room, number 303. He then throws the keys to the employee, and his body slumps into the chair as if it were completely lifeless. Scared, the receptionist asks the two to follow him down the dark, cobweb-filled hallway. As they walk, they see the owner's body slumped over the counter, and the mood becomes even heavier and more bizarre. The pink-haired girl comments that the hotel owner is gone, and the hero replies that he knew it all along. Arriving at door 303, the employee stops, and his shadow reveals a monstrous and frightening form. The employee watches the couple with a look of pity, thinking that two more young people are about to have a very bad time in that place. With that, the gray-haired young man takes the keys from the man's hand and realizes he is hesitating out of pure fear. Upon entering the room, the pink-haired girl notices red marks on the ceiling and asks if someone was eliminated there yesterday. Sweating nervously, the guide tries to play down the situation, saying the hotel has cleaning rules and that no one could have perished in that room. But the hero stares at the man with a suspicious look and asks if he really thinks this is all just a bad joke. At that moment, the artist mentions the departed owner and the dark aura that dominates the place to prove the situation is very serious. The chubby guy is shocked and wonders how the young man knows so many hidden details about the establishment's terrible secrets. Stealthily, the employee reaches for a firearm at his waist while trying to stay calm in the face of imminent danger. But the protagonist quickly approaches and asks how an ordinary person has managed to survive so long in a place surrounded by monsters. Then the mark on the young man's arm glows, and he uses his dark energy to immobilize the attacker's hand before he can react. Desperate, the man points the pistol and shouts, asking if the hero is one of those dangerous anomalies that possess ghost powers. Without a second thought, the man pulls the trigger, and the sound of the shot echoes throughout the dark hallway of the haunted hotel. With quick reflexes, the young man dodges the bullet by a hair's breadth as a drop of sweat runs down his face during the tense moment. At that, the artist concentrates his energy in the palm of his hand and prepares to deliver a decisive blow to the opponent who tried to take his life. With a swift movement, he lands a powerful punch to the enemy's stomach, and the force of the impact makes the man lose his breath instantly. The employee drops to his knees on the floor, spitting out a strange fluid and feeling unbearable pain from the hero's devastating attack. Suddenly, the pink-haired fiancée appears behind the man with a pink aura and a sinister smile that shows she's not messing around. With a quick movement, she uses her mystical force to create a trail of light that cuts through the air, leaving the adversary completely paralyzed. Grabbing the man's arm, the young woman tells him to be honest and start telling the whole truth if he wants to get out of this complicated situation alive. To finish it off, the artist points the man's own weapon at his head and demands to know who he really is and what his real plan is. With the gun to his head, the man asks if the hero is an anomaly and if he will be tormented before his end. With a serious expression, the protagonist questions who told him that the young man was one of those creatures. He then explains that having ghost power doesn't make you a monster and asks if the gun might be a ghost object. Desperate, the man shouts that the equipment is not a ghost object at all and becomes terrified. With his eyes wide with fear, the man seems to realize he made a huge mistake in judging the couple. He then reveals that the weapon was issued by the Bureau of Investigation and is used to eliminate anomalies. With a victorious smile, the young man asks if the chubby guy finally understands that they are not the enemies there. The pink-haired girl approaches and whispers that if they were anomalies, the man would already be in pieces by now. Frightened, the man decides he will tell them everything to save his own life, thinking that the young woman is anything but normal. With that, he surrenders and asks to be released, as he will reveal the whole truth about his secret mission. At that, he shows his ID and introduces himself as Wang Shun, an agent from the Anomaly Investigation Bureau. The agent reveals he was undercover to investigate the events at the hotel, but got trapped there for 3 long days. The artist then takes the document and asks how long he has been investigating and if he has found the origin of the so-called thing. Yet, right after, the young man asks if the agent has seen anyone dressed as a clown while the girl smiles knowingly. The investigator confesses he hasn't found anything and that the sinister thing needs to eliminate 1 target per day before dawn. With this, the hero understands that the clown probably has some direct connection to the monster of that hotel. The artist asks how the targets are chosen, and the agent says that the last 2 answered a voice at the door. Suddenly, a mysterious voice calls out for the chubby guy, saying the guest in room 201 wants hot water now. Nervous, the man replies that he is on his way while the couple watches him in silence with very serious expressions. Kneeling, the agent says he hasn't seen the clown but guarantees there is a person in the hotel who knows everything. The hero then asks if that person is the hotel owner named Sun Desheng, and the girl watches intently, but the agent warns them not to look for him and says that after midnight, the thing starts to choose its daily targets. With a smile, the man jokes that if they hear him scream, it's because he might really need help. As the investigator is leaving, the artist stops him and asks him to wait just 1 more second. At that moment, the young man returns the weapon to the agent, who is surprised by the unexpected gesture. The pink-haired girl asks why he gave the equipment back, and the hero replies that it was just a good deed. But in reality, he thinks he might need to cooperate with the Bureau in the future, and wants to build good karma with them. Outside, the hotel is surrounded by a sinister red energy as storm bolts flash in the dark sky. Inside the room, the couple's shadow on the floor takes on a monstrous and frightening form in the light from the window. With that, his companion asks her beloved if he has already figured out the true identity of the local anomaly. The clock on the wall then strikes midnight, and time seems to stop for an instant in that haunted room. Suddenly, the minute hand comes loose and falls slowly towards the wooden floor of the dark room. Right after, a drop of a thick, red fluid begins to drip from the center of the broken clock on the wall. The drop hits the floor and explodes in an intense light that illuminates the entire room with a very sinister energy. Now the room is dark, lit only by the moonlight, as the couple watches everything very carefully. At that moment, the agent's memory comes to mind, and he warns that after midnight, no one can be trusted there. With a serious look, the artist thinks that the midnight bell has already tolled, and that a new day of hunting has begun. He then concludes that the anomaly is coming, but the girl interrupts him and says someone is coming to them. Soon after, knocks on the door echo through the room, and the couple stares at the entrance in total silence. With a malicious smile, the Yandere says that it's barely past midnight, and the little rats have already come to turn themselves into her. With that, the artist stops his companion from opening the door and tells her to wait a little longer before acting. He then comments that the agent's information was correct and asks her to be patient at that moment. With mischievous smiles, the two seem to agree on a silent plan to trick whoever is on the other side. At that, the young man asks who is knocking, and a female voice says her boyfriend is feeling very sick. Upon opening the door, he sees a young woman in a nightgown who looks very scared and desperate about the situation. She explains that her partner suddenly started convulsing and that she doesn't know what to do to help him. With a look of pity, the fiancée asks her beloved if they should help the couple in trouble. The artist then agrees and says they will take a look, as it's not easy to be far from home alone. In room 302, they find a man thrashing on the bed with sharp teeth and white eyes. The couple then observes the bizarre scene, and the protagonist asks how long the young man has been in that state. With a keen eye, the hero notices the bulging veins on the sick man's arm and realizes something is very wrong. He then suggests it might be an epileptic seizure, while the Yandere and the other girl watch the scene from a distance. But as he gets closer, he asks if her boyfriend has a history of epilepsy and notices the man's red eye. With a malicious smile, the woman reveals her true form and says that this is definitely not epilepsy. At that, the man on the bed also transforms into a monster and lunges to attack the artist with his sharp claws. Right after, the fake girlfriend turns into a dark creature and charges at the pink-haired girl with fury. But with a confident smile, the warrior pulls out a dagger and says that the enemies have finally decided to show up. The protagonist dodges the male monster's attack and uses his hand to land a direct blow to its face. Using his dark power, the hero immobilizes the creature with red energy tentacles, leaving it unable to react. Meanwhile, the Yandere overpowers the other enemy and attacks her with her dagger while pulling her hair forcefully. Holding the monster, the artist asks who sent it to attack them and demands a quick answer for everything. At that, the female creature screams in pain as red fluid gushes from its wounds all over the room. Even without an arm, the woman tries to escape, but the Yandere stops her with a direct hit to her legs at the same time. With a cruel smile, the young warrior strikes the enemy with her dagger and ends the fight once and for all. The male monster then reveals its bizarre face and warns that the couple will not survive the night at all. Suddenly, the two enemies explode in a shower of red liquid, and the fluid stains the entire room. The monster's vital fluid spreads across the wooden floor and begins to be slowly absorbed by the room's flooring. In seconds, all the liquid vanishes, and the floor becomes completely clean, as if nothing had happened in that place. The girl complains that she couldn't get any information, and the hero realizes that the anomaly controls everything in the building. He then explains that the monster couple was just being controlled to test the strength of the two newcomers. The artist deduces that the enemy didn't attack with full force because it's either sure they can't escape or is waiting for a better chance. With a swift movement, the young woman sits on her beloved's lap, and the mood between them suddenly starts to heat up. At that, the young man concludes that they are in a confined space with an enemy that hunts over time, and he calls it a jumping ghost. The pink-haired girl then asks if this new ghost is also another character that came out of his old drawings. The hero confirms the theory and says that the agent didn't know the villain's story, but he, as the creator, knows everything. He thinks that the clown ghost hasn't appeared yet and might be waiting to use the other's trap to attack. The Yandere gets annoyed by his lack of attention and tries to force a kiss on the artist, who seems quite distracted with his plan. With a smile, the young man says he knows she wants a kiss and leans in with his eyes full of happy hearts. The young woman gets all embarrassed by her beloved's action, and a little puff of shy steam starts to come from her head. He then hugs her affectionately and asks her to wait a little, because first, they need to solve the mysteries of that hotel. Suddenly, more knocks on the door interrupt the mood, and the couple's romantic moment is over for good. With this, the young man gets tense, because if his partner gets angry, she could destroy the building and ruin his hunting plan. But the young woman seems very calm, and with a sweet voice asks her beloved to go answer the door without worrying about anything. At that, a male voice asks if anyone is in the room as the knocking on the door continues, getting louder and louder. Worried about her reaction, the artist asks if the girl is really okay with this annoying interruption. He finds it strange that she didn't get mad about the situation, but the girl's calm smile scares him a little. Upon opening the door, the artist is faced with a group of other guests who seem very worried about something. One of the men introduces himself as Lihan and says they heard screams and want to know what happened inside the room. The hero then realizes this is another tactic by the enemy to test him and decides to play along to see what happens. With a scared expression, the young man tells them that the couple in the next room went crazy and that something terrible happened to them. The group becomes even more frightened, and one of them comments that the hotel hasn't been a safe place for anyone lately. Pointing to the window, the artist yells that the two neighbors simply jumped to their doom from up there without a second thought.